Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. And as we delve into this week's topic, a reminder that some of the content may be of a sensitive nature. Now, here's your hosts, Tim and Des.
Okay, welcome to this week's Momentum. As always, really great to have you tuning in and spending some time with us here at Momentum. And, you know, we are nationwide and worldwide through our podcast, which is really, really special. So if you're not in Australia at the moment, a big warm welcome to you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I'm not sure how you found us, but if you'd like to let us know, that'd be awesome. And do that at the website. And as always, it's not just myself. I'm joined by our Irish good friend and co-host, Des Kennedy. How are you this week?
I'm really good, thanks. It's great to be here, and it's great to have this conversation. You know, just while I've got the microphone, don't forget our website, momentumaustralia.org. Guys, there's lots of information on there that will absolutely help you on your journey. All our previous podcasts are there, and certainly if you want to help us financially, we are a ministry. We rely on our financial support, and that's great. But consider that, please, on our website. But also, guys, if you're doing life on your own and you need a safe and confidential conversation, sometimes it's so hard to have a conversation with family who don't see what you see and so forth, and your mates maybe don't see what you see. So if you want to have a safe, confidential conversation, the Momentum Care Line is the answer. 1-800-000-MEN. That's 1-800-000-636. Easy number to remember, especially for men. 1-800-000-MEN. And also, we now are taking some of our previous shows and put them into YouTube. And so if you search for Momentum for Men on YouTube or go to our website and click the link on our website, you will see us as well as hear us. And that's I think it's a really good thing. But it's great to be here.
In all fairness, we've not had any complaints, Des,
about
your physical appearance.
Yet.
So look, we're going with it. But now keep an eye on the YouTube channel. There's new videos up there all the time. And look, it just gives you an opportunity to actually see us and not just hear us. And also, most importantly, see our guest. And our guest this week is Rob Furlong from Woodvale Baptist Church. Pastor Rob Furlong, I should say, from Woodvale Baptist Church here in Perth. And, you know, Rob, last week we were talking about your walk of faith, your journey of faith, and we're exploring this over a couple of shows and this idea of endurance over the years in our faith. But I want to just quickly throw back to last week's show because we ended on something that I think we all agreed is really important and is the heart of Momentum, and that is men getting connected and the importance of that. And you shared that, you know, when you were in ministry, you started reaching out to guys around you because you felt that you needed that. And so we're going to start there and just perhaps unpack that story because, I mean, this is a great testimony to men listening right now of the importance of getting connected with other guys on a regular basis.
So my story, Tim and Des, is that I was about 2 or 3 years into a particular ministry that I was in at the time, and there was a lot going on in the church, and there were expectations that weren't being met, all the stuff that goes into ministry. And so I had lots of struggles in my own self, personally, doubts about myself, feeling discouraged. And I knew of 2 guys who names of Ross and Carl, who they were meeting regularly, had been doing this for probably a couple of years. And Carl used to talk to me about it. And so I just decided one day, I need this. I need to go somewhere that's outside my situation. And so I just approached Carl and said, would you mind if I came along and joined you? And they welcomed me with open arms. And they are 2 of my biggest supporters in ministry. They're in my corner. We share openly with each other. We pray for each other. One of the guys is on the East Coast these days, but we stay in contact and we always pick up where we left off. There's just incredibly good relationship and friendship there. And I would just say to guys, if you look, just reach out. If you know of some guys doing that, reach out and ask if you be a part of it. Don't be discouraged if you get knocked back. Keep trying till you find someone. There will be other guys out there, I assure you, who are looking for the same thing.
Rob, let me ask you in a nutshell, how important has that been for you over the last 20 odd years or whatever it's been? Like, because for a lot of guys, that's a confronting space to sit. And Des and I have shared our stories, but for you, what's been the benefit of just having that regular contact over that amount of time?
I know that there are 2 guys who pray for me. There are 2 guys I know I can go to and get honest feedback and know that they will be honest about themselves. None of us pretend that we've got it all together. And it's the constant support. I know I can ring those guys up anytime. And so, for example, one of them had to fly east this week because his sister is quite ill. And I rang him a couple of times. You know, he knew I was praying for him, but I rang him because I was really concerned. This was a confronting thing for him to be going through. So it's that kind of support, you know. You know that those guys are there, and you can ring them up anytime. I know I could do that if needed be, and if I couldn't get them at the time, I know they'd ring back.
Yeah, and there's probably nothing that's off the table. There's nothing you can't talk about.
Yeah.
No matter how bad, those people will be there and in your corner every time.
Oh, yeah. You might not like to talk about it.
No, that's right. That's true.
but nothing's off the table.
Yeah. But if you didn't have that closeness, then when those subjects come up, you wouldn't be able to have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
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 There's a quote, and then perhaps we'll move on, but there's a quote that says, shame dies when stories are told in safe places.
Yeah.
I love it. Shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. And for guys, you need a safe space.
Yes.
You need a safe space to get open and honest about that stuff. And I'll tell you what, the weight that lifts off you when you start talking about some of that stuff, and even like Rob said, just knowing that you got a couple of people around you who are in your camp, they've got your back, they're praying for you, they're picking up on stuff you're saying, they will lovingly challenge you as well. And we all need that, and hold you accountable too. Get some guys in your life. And if you don't, encourage you to do that. And in the meantime, you can call the care line, 1-800-000-636. Now, I'm being serious. Call the care line if you need a confidential conversation. Might just start the journey of healing or getting something off your chest that you've been carrying for a long, long time. Encourage you to do that. All right, Rob, that's a fantastic way to start the show. Thank you for bringing that back up, and thank you for sharing your story. But let's keep on the journey of your life. And we talked about ministry, and you've stepped into the ministry space. But I want to just quickly then, I suppose, recap, because during that time I know that you're a husband, you're a dad. I think you're a granddad now, so probably several times. We all turn 40 and have midlife crises to some degree and all that sort of stuff. I mean, let's kind of explore some of those transitions in your life, if you don't mind. Because again, as guys, and we have a faith attached to that, but we all go through these things and they all kind of impact us to some degree. Talk to us a little bit about becoming a husband, because I know that obviously you'd shared that you'd had a bit of a journey before that, and then you're in faith, and then you meet Karen. How did that transition happen for you into husbandhood? Was that a fairly easy one for you, or did that bring up some stuff in the first few years of marriage, like it tends to for most of us?
I would truthfully say, Tim, that stuff that needed to be brought up, which should come out in a relationship, got brought up for, like, what I would say some of the really significant stuff got brought up before we got married. So that in working through that, the transition to marriage was great. It was fantastic. But again, bearing in mind we were both 20 when we married, so I want to buffer that by saying that at 20 you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
Sure.
So it doesn't mean that there wasn't issues along the way. But the transition to marriage, we were both ready to be married, and we certainly came in with a mindset that we wanted to do. Karen was from a broken home. I was from a different type of broken home, but we both knew how we wanted to do things. And even though those things were very unrefined, we had certainly had a commitment that we're going to always get conflict resolved. And we've done that better than we have at other times, but we've muddled through and got the conflict resolved. And that's been a strong point for us. So that stepping into marriage was great.
Step into the dad space with us then, Rob, because how old were you when you became a father?
So I was 23.
So that's pretty young.
Get the perspective. Started the church in the March, and in April I'm a father.
So some advice for young dads listening, Rob. Des and I have shared our stories again, the transition into fatherhood. It's not always necessarily smooth. And I think for dads, we can be a little slow on the uptake, because, when a woman's carrying a baby, it's a different, they've got 9 months to adjust and feel this thing. And we see it from an external perspective, and all of a sudden it's here. And it can take us a little while to adjust to that. But some advice then for young dads particularly who might be listening and starting that journey, or they're about to step into that journey.
Don't rush the journey. Enjoy it. I would characterize, particularly in my 20s and 30s, I was always in a hurry to go somewhere, hurry to get into ministry, hurry to do this, hurry to do that, hurry to do that. And I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy time along the way with my kids. I made an effort with that. But I would say to young dads, don't be in a hurry to get, like, this is a precious moment in your life. And yes, it's a transition, but this is a precious moment in your life. Use it. Take the opportunity. Try and get as much out of it as you can. Build relationships. We've been going through some we're going through some difficult times with one of our kids recently in terms of some change in relationship for them. And that's been, I've got to be careful about talking about it because we love both people in the situation, but it's been a difficult transition for them and for us. And I found myself sitting out the front of my house looking at dads and mums walking around with their little 5-year-old daughter thinking, oh, I wish I had that time back.
Yeah.
Don't rush it. Take the time to enjoy because you will never get it back.
It's very, very sound advice. And I wish you'd give me that advice 50 years ago.
Yeah. Rob, can I ask, and just a final question perhaps before we run into a break, but has that been at times, being really honest, has that been at times at the expense of your family? Because often in our 20s and 30s as a man, we want to put a footprint on the world and we want to try and be successful. And Des' story, with respect, Des, I mean, you've shared it, is that, at the expense of family at times. Have you been guilty of that too, Rob?
So, look, there will be times when it's going to cost you in ministry with your family. However, I can truthfully say, like, Karen and I have had this discussion as well. I'll wear my mistakes as a father and as a parent, but I can truthfully say from the outset of ministry that I made it a goal that after God, Karen came first and then my family and then ministry. So I can truthfully say I've never consciously put, I'm not saying that ministry hasn't at times cost us as a family. There will be those times that has to happen. And when that happened, I would explain to the kids why. I didn't just leave it in a vacuum.
Mm.
So I would say, look, I know that we were planning this, but this has happened. That did not happen very often. But I can truthfully say that I'd not put the church in front of my family because Scripture says in 1 Timothy 3 that I'm to be the husband of one wife and a good father. And I figured if I failed, and I'm not a perfect father, but I figured if I failed in those areas, how can I lead the church? Best thing I can do for the church is actually model a godly marriage and a godly family. It doesn't mean they're all going to be Christians, but to the best of my ability, what I try to do is if I put my energies into that, what does it matter if I build a church? Not I, but if a church gets, I could build a church in 2000 or whatever guys think that. You got 2,000 people coming along. If my marriage cracks up halfway through the ministry, look at the damage it does. And I'm not saying that it's easy. Of course, you're going to have temptation, chuck you at all sorts of stuff. But we have to make commitments about what is essential, what are the important things. Because there is no point. Look at the damage that happens when a leader falls. Mm-hmm. The damage that happens. Not just, and the damage that it does to the church. And I've seen that happen over and over again. Mm. I don't want to be a statistic. I want to finish it. I want to finish well.
I love that. It's powerful. And I think the key message there is get your own house in order before you start building God's house. And that's a message we'll just leave ringing in the guys' ears as we go through a short break. We're with Pastor Rob Furlong from Woodvale Baptist Church, exploring endurance in faith as we have been over the last couple of weeks. But we'll come back for the second part of this show in just a moment. We'll take a short break here on Momentum.
This is Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
Hi, we're back with Momentum, and we have with us Rob Furlong, who's an amazing guy, great man, pastor of Woodvale Baptist Church in Perth, and we were talking about his 40 years of endurance as a pastor and in ministry, and he's been insightful in terms of how he's done life and his priorities. And it's been amazing, a great conversation. So if you missed the first part of the show, please, I urge you, go back and listen to the first part of the show. It's really worthwhile. So Rob, tell us a bit more about the lessons you have learned in doing life.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, there's sort of lots of things we could talk about. We've kind of talked around the faith and family issues, but I would certainly maybe summarise that by saying, obviously, faith comes first, your relationship with God, so that has to be the priority. And then after that, our responsibility is to our family. And that I think that cuts it whether we're married or not, okay? Because if you're not married, I think you have a commitment to your family still.
Yeah.
That has to be exemplified. And then things like church, ministry, work, whatever those things come next. So faith is a priority, God first, family second. We talked at length, I think, about the importance of friendship, but just to reiterate again, particularly to the guys listening, if you haven't got a group of friends, you've got to find some. It doesn't have to be many, but 2 or 3 guys. There will be guys out there, I assure you, who are looking for something to talk to or someone to talk to. So friendship relationships are important. On the subject of ministry, and this goes for all of us, see, yeah, look, I'm a pastor, but I just happen to do, my role just happens to be full-time. I don't think there should be any distinction between ministry and secular. Everything is actually sacred if we belong to Christ. And so your vocation, what you do, is important. It's part of who you are, who God called you to be. We shouldn't have this distinction between the sacred and the secular. But what I would say, your ministry, your vocation, I think that flows out of who you are. We tend to get it round the other way, that we'll do all the great stuff, whatever it is. But really, and particularly when it comes to the area of serving God, it flows out of who you are. And this leadership principle goes right across the board for everybody, regardless of what you do in life. You can only lead people as far as you've gone yourself. You can't lead people any further than what you've gone yourself. But the other principle, and I like to say this to people, is when it comes to leadership, whether it's in your family or your church or whatever it is, sometimes we think that the leader is like 60 yards in front of us, and that's not the case. I found in leadership, you only have to be a couple of steps in front. That's all it takes. As the leader, you've just got to know what's the next step to take. What are the next couple of things we need to do? That's leadership. So we don't have to be the charismatic, up front, knock them in the aisles leader, you know? Some of the best leaders in the world are the quietest ones. Watch out for the quiet bloke.
Because that leader will inspire people, will drive people, will motivate people, will encourage people. All those things that Christ did when he was on the earth. That's how he got the disciples to come along with him, because he was a leader. So you're absolutely spot on.
And look, a couple of things, some of the things, health, you've got to make health a priority. And I am not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I exercise every day. At the moment, I'm going through a pretty bad patch with that. But we do need to be careful about, simple things like diet, what we eat, that kind of stuff. We need to be careful in that space. Try and keep reasonably fit. That's important. And the one that comes up for us as guys is wealth. More and more, the older I get, the more I realise is, what, you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
There are some men who I know God has gifted to make money, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's, what is the goal? What's the end game here? What's the priority? So what I say is, do it to the glory of God. But I'm recognising more and more, this stuff that we've got around us, this isn't going to last. This is not the end game. The end game is glory with Jesus.
There's a fair bit in the first 5 minutes of the show, so I would encourage you to go back and have a listen to that. Rob, a couple of things, and the second one is going to sound a little strange, but I think maybe we can end on these. Advice to guys who are going through a tough time right now, and advice to guys who are in a good season right now. Because we don't often talk about that, how we can handle the good. We talk about, the tough, the trial, the tribulation, I just get through that. But even when we get into a good season, there's things that we need to be mindful of. So maybe we can finish on those two thoughts.
Yeah. Look, in terms of guys who are going through a tough time right now, I've got 3 principles that stood me in good stead when I was going through my burnout, because that was really a tough time. And my whole world was literally turned upside down. The first one is pray. So I at the time, because I was just desperate to try and get this thing worked out, what was going on in my head, and try to get that sorted out. And one of the books I read was by Max Lucado called Facing Your Giants, which is a series of studies through the life of David. Found that enormously helpful. What I like about Max Lucado is he's got some great insights, but he's very practical and very down to earth. And in one chapter, he gave 3 principles that I wrote them down in my journal at the time as my strategy. And I got this early in the piece when I went into a 6-month break. So the first was pray. First thing you do when you're going through a tough time is turn to God. Don't turn away from him. You are not going to understand everything you're going through, whatever that tough time is. And it can be all sorts of stuff that guys are struggling with right now. So what I want to say to you is go to God first. Seek God. If you've been away from God for a period of time, come back to him, recommit your life to him. If you haven't walked away from God, but you're feeling some doubts arising, come back to God, start praying. This is the time not to withdraw from God, but to go to God. Okay, so that was the first step. The second step is get good counsel. Now, we talked about the importance of having blokes around you, but if it's depending on the situation, but it could be a really difficult one, I would encourage you to get good counsel. If it has to be professional, my preference is get a Christian professional.
Yes.
I think because Christian professionals are going to have a completely different worldview. I'm not saying there's not some good stuff out there, but sometimes the counsel is not the best that you need to hear. In the midst of that, as you get that good counsel, you're going to realize that some people are good people to talk to, but their counsel might not be what you need at this point. That might sound a bit bizarre, but I learned that. I discovered good men that I was talking to at the time, but some of them I realized actually and you will know it, but that's not what I need to hear right now. It's not about rejecting counsel that challenges you, but you will know if that's right for you at this point. So I'm not saying shy away from being challenged. What I'm saying is some counsel might be good counsel, but it's not what you need at that point. So I began to learn that. And the final thing is swim another stroke. In other words, what we're talking about, endurance, keep on plugging on. Max Lucado told this fantastic story. Florence, I've forgotten the last name, but she was a swimmer, and she tried to swim from the coast of California to Catalina Island, which is a reasonably long swim, can be quite treacherous. When she first attempted the swim, she got to a point where the clouds came in. She couldn't see her way forward, and so she got up. She just thought, I'm giving up, been in the water for hours, I just can't do it. She got up and realized she was only like 500 meters from shore. And he was saying, it's always too soon to give up, swim another stroke. Now, the end result of that story, the good thing is she did go back and attempt it again, and she completed it. So the story still holds true. It's always too soon to give up, swim another stroke. It might feel like hell on earth, but just keep plodding forward, just keep going forward. Those things got me through the tough time.
Wow.
And I would say it was the toughest time of my life.
Yeah, 3 good keys there for sure.
Pray, get good counsel, swim another stroke.
Keep going.
Grab Max Lucado's book, Facing the Giants.
Yeah.
The advice to guys who are in a good season right now is pretty straightforward. Don't get complacent.
Yeah.
Don't get complacent. And if you are in a good season, look around for someone that you can encourage.
Yes.
Maybe the best story I can think of that is I can think of a guy who a couple of years ago came to me with, it was a really, really bad, difficult season for him. And I walked through that with him. He's a great guy and just he loves Jesus, but he was really going through a tough time. But do you know what's brilliant? He's in a good season now. He's in a great space, and he's helping a group of other men.
Wow.
I had these guys who I knew just needed someone to get around them, and help them. And I was a little bit in trepidation to ask my friend, but I said, look, I think you're the right guy for this. And he just went, I'll do it straight away, like that.
Yeah.
So if you're in a good season, I guess what I'd say is, don't be complacent. Look around and see if there's someone you can help. Or if someone approaches you, like your pastor, and says, I think you're the right guy for this, be open to it.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you're being asked for a reason.
Yeah,
good.
It's really good. There's been a lot in the last couple of weeks, and once again, we encourage you to go back to our website, momentumaustralia.org, and have a listen to these couple of shows. And of course, if you're on the podcast space as well, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcast space, have a listen to these past couple of episodes. And that was the whole purpose of getting Pastor Rob Furlong on the show, to talk about endurance and picking his life apart to some degree and go, hey, is there stuff here we can glean after 40 years in ministry? And Rob, you've certainly given us lots of stuff to think about, and hopefully lots of things for the guys listening to think about as well and apply into their lives, most importantly. So our good friend and Pastor Woodvale Baptist Church, Rob Furlong, thank you for your time on Momentum.
Thanks, guys. It's been a privilege to be with you. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. For more information or to hear this week's show again, go to momentumaustralia.org. You can also access a whole range of resources to help you on your journey and to get in touch with the team at momentumaustralia.org. Until next time, keep moving forward with Momentum.